Say it ain't so, Terry. Terry Rozier making some comments on the Hornets franchise.
Come
now
on.
that he's with Heat Culture. Now I get the Heat Culture jersey on. We defended you, man. Now he's taking shots at the Charlotte Hornets organization. We do have Brandon Miller, though. There is good news. We try to balance everything out today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We are free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. There's Doug Branson. You can find his work on his substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. I'm Walker Mail. You can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m., and we just can't escape any embarrassment whatsoever. This is our lives, okay? These are the days of our lives where we continue to do these episodes, and then we have to talk about something embarrassing that happened the day prior. This is what our content is, and so every once in a while we need a break, despite the Hornets not allowing us to have said break. So the latest update, the latest level in reaching a certain embarrassment is Terry Rozier talking about the Hornets organization, and he was asked about the difference in losing with the Hornets compared to losing with Miami. And
because they're losing. They're losing right now. They are on a certified losing streak.
They are losing as well. But there's a difference, Doug, and Terry told us about it. Here's what Terry had to say about the difference between losing with both franchises.
It's just total opposite. It's total opposite. You know, when you're in Charlotte, you kind of used to losing. It's kind of your DNA. And it sucks to say that because how much of a competitor I am, but over here is just, you know, it's the total opposite. Nobody wants to lose. Nobody is you know, it's fine with it. And I think today was super helpful with the video. And, you know, us talking to one another. And I think, you know, hopefully tomorrow we can turn things around. But I think everybody's no secret. Everybody know the difference between organizations, some organizations in the league, and how well some people take winning, the culture of things. But this is the top.
La, 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 la. I don't want to hear it anymore. No more. I don't want to hear it. I'm done. I'm done.
Hat tip to Wes Goldberg, host of the Locked On Heat podcast, who got that sound, and the Hornets Reddit Twitter account that tipped me off on it.
Yeah, no, hat tip for sure. We appreciate it. Yeah, it's tough. So what's unfortunate is Terry Rozier saying this about the very team and the very teammates that he loves, but also no one can really disagree with what he's saying. I'll go to you here. I've talked a lot about this, Doug.
Oh, you talked about it on WFNZ already?
No, I'm sorry. I've just talked about it a lot here, right? Like just, you know, I've been talking a lot, hogging all your airtime at the beginning of the show. Why don't you share with us your thoughts on what Terry Rozier had to say?
Well, I hope you do talk about it on Wes and Walker 12 to 3 today, because I am very interested in what the text line feels about this, because I personally am conflicted, because what he said was true, and I'm glad he said it. I'm glad when anyone says it. I'm glad when this ownership group is confronted with the shame, and it's not all on their plate, although Gabe Plotkin has been a part of this organization for a while now, before becoming one of the primary owners. But they need to be confronted with the shame. Where I'm conflicted, though, is, hey, Terry, why didn't you say that when you were a part of this organization, when you could have influenced change by saying something like this publicly, by applying pressure publicly? Instead, look, and we lauded you for playing hard, appreciate that, but fundamental change did not happen in this organization while you were a part of it. This is not a profile in courage to go in front of the Miami media and dish on Charlotte. So I'm terribly conflicted by this.
No, I am too. And here I am talking about, the Terry's time and Charlotte eulogy when I had my own episode. And I'm saying,
we already went through this with Kelly Oubre, by the way. We just went through this with Kelly Oubre.
Right. You're exactly right. Kelly and I was comparing the two comments. Kelly, it felt more like he was talking about the city of Charlotte and the fans and how they expect to lose. And it is a losing culture for sure. But it was more on the fans front. At least that's the way I heard it when Kelly was talking about it. Doug, this feels more like the organization and what Terry is talking about, how they care. It's in their DNA. I guess it's in our DNA. Hell, I'm wearing the logo right now, but it's the classic Hornet. I don't know about this new one, if we can differentiate it. Yeah, maybe it's in my DNA as a fan, but it didn't seem like he was talking about the fan base compared to what Kelly Oubre was saying. You're right. This was always a little bit a part of my roller coaster relationship with Terry as a fan of the Charlotte Hornets. It is going up to the podium and saying this team has to play better defensively. We have to buy in, and then them continuing to be 25th defense in the league or worse.
Yeah.
This is Terry Rozier, who says that he has to be more vocal in the locker room and out there on the court, but then nothing changes too much, at least to the point where you have a winning culture or get to some level of mediocrity. Because right now, yeah, they had it 2 years ago when they got to the play and then got stomped, but they did have an over 500 record. That has not happened. That has not been the case the last couple of years. And so that's been the rocky relationship, right? Ultimately, Terry, I didn't question his effort whatsoever. Like on the court, the dude gave it his all every single time. He got better as a basketball player, checks all the boxes there. Maybe he's just not a leader in that regard of galvanizing the troops. Maybe the environment is so hard for him to do that here. I give credence to that also. That may very well be true. But it is unfortunate that here we are. Are we 2 weeks removed now from Terry being in the Heat culture? And he's telling you it's in their DNA. Oh, man, you used to be one of their. Not anymore. Now you got the Heat culture jersey on, and it's them. They used to lose. What? No, I don't. Yeah, it's in their DNA, not mine. I'm different.
That's right. You're exactly right. He does own a part of that failure. He owns a part of that losing, and any success that he had while he was in Charlotte, he owns that too. But he was not. It wasn't as if the failure was just happening all around him, and he took no part in it. By not applying public pressure, he was a part of that entire culture because no one would stand up and say enough is enough. There's not enough talent here. We cannot win basketball games like this. And, he was also a part of 2 play-in blowout losses. He was a part of that too. So let's not get it twisted. But back to his central point, which is that losing is in this organization's DNA. I think that might be going a little too far, but it's certainly a part because the DNA, it makes up everything that you are, and you can't change your DNA unless you're in a comic book and you fall into a vat of like nuclear waste or whatever. But you can't change your DNA. The Hornets can absolutely change the culture. They can change what's going on. It will be very difficult. It will take time, but it is not impossible to do. But here's what it takes. It takes will. It takes courage. It takes investment. We're here right now because the previous owner in Michael Jordan did not invest in this team like one would expect someone to invest if they wanted to actually win basketball games and not cash out at the end for billions of dollars. Because this new ownership group, guess what? They can continue to lose exactly like they're losing right now. And if they have zero shame about it, they will, 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the line, they're going to cash the same exact check that Michael Jordan did going out the door. So that's why I hope that players like Terry continue to speak out. I would love if someone in the current roster would do it publicly. And I hope that away fans continue to pour into the Spectrum Center and chant for their team. And I hope that bird calls continue to fly out from crazy Utah fans. And I hope...
No, I don't wish that. You went one step too far. One step too far.
I hope that eventually those bird calls land on the ears of Gabe Plotkin and Rick Schnall, and it induces shame. Because that is the only thing that is going to move this organization in the right direction, is the ownership group feeling shame about what they have wrought, what they continue to rot on this fan base, and then do something about it.
There we go. It's always the best dismount. Do something about it is the way that you end a take like that. You take a swig, you take a breath, and then we'll move on. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
I'm glad you're back.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back. Immediately
it's always better in this chair. I can do it in this chair. When I'm in your chair,
right? It's completely different.
There's a responsibility. I'm thinking about ads. I'm thinking about moving the show. I'm thinking about making sure David has enough time to talk. In this chair, there's freedom. I love this chair.
Does David interrupt you when you're in this chair? No, it's
great. No, it's
nice.
great.
It's nice. Anyways, it's in our DNA. I do want to have a couple of comments about the DNA thing and the actual change. I want to continue to explore that thought. We'll get to that in a moment. And then another part of the change could be already on the roster with Brandon Miller. It does not seem at all like losing is a part of his DNA. We'll get to that in just a moment here on Locked On Hornets. This episode is brought to you by our partners at eBay Motors. They've teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked out for us on this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. Here's somebody that had been often mentioned in trade rumors for the Charlotte Hornets. I guess still could be, possibly. Ayo Dosunmu. With Levine and Williams both injured, Dosunmu has seen his minutes and usage bump up while also being more aggressive offensively and maintaining efficiency. For at least the short term, he has value.
Yeah, he's too good. He's not getting, by the way, he's not getting traded. Don't get your hopes up. The Hornets missed their window. They should have traded for him when they had the opportunity, but now it's gone. He's playing too well.
All right, what about this? Could I interest you in a potential trade if we're just throwing things in the trade machine?
Oh, wow.
What about somebody else on Josh's list? B-ball Paul Reed. For as long as Joel Embiid is out with knee soreness, Reed is an elite fantasy ad. What about going after B-ball Paul, man? That might help you out with the
it would, but Philadelphia says no. Philadelphia's trying to win a championship. They're not getting rid of anybody.
That's true. We have losing in our DNA. Thanks to Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball. He's helping you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. It's the same with your vehicle. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can now make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, the roof rack, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or you get your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, you're not burning cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. More Locked On Hornets ahead. All right, back to the DNA thing. You know, that I'm always going to think about that now, Terry Rozier, because you're right, Doug. It's a big old statement. I'm not trying to make this thing into a mountain, this molehill into a mountain. I'm not trying to do that. But when you say that it's in the DNA, you're right. It does kind of indicate that there isn't anything that can change. And then I go back over the second iteration of the franchise in Charlotte, and they haven't won. The closest that they did get was 2015 and 16, and that was a 7-game series. When they get to game 7, they get bounced. They get absolutely destroyed. So as we see the current state of the second iteration of this franchise, because, I mean, a lot of people will joke about the first iteration, and they at least won playoff series. No, they didn't get to a conference finals, but that team actually has had some success, right? Not this one. So it's still here. Maybe it couldn't change until Michael sold majority stake of the team. And I often thought, well, all right, when Michael purchased it, everybody was excited. And then it became this easy thing to do to just blame Michael for all of the problems. And he was responsible for a lot, but it was just always, hey, let's have an intelligent conversation about the Hornets. Nope. Michael's thought, I'm done. That's my take. What you got? That's how things used to go. The change now is the fact that we've already seen it with Gabe Plotkin and Rick Schnall taking over. We've already seen it as far as the titles changing. Now we're seeing stadium updates. People joked because it's like, great, why don't you just put a product on the floor that we can actually watch? That's the easy joke to make for sure. I'm not even not here for it. But They are making the stadium updates. They're starting to put their fingerprints on the organization. They are in information gathering mode. Yep, make your jokes there too, because this is the best franchise at gathering information and not actually doing anything about it. But the last year, or 6 months that they've had the tenure here, the last year or so that they've been gathering information, hopefully we can see that applied going into next year. This offseason is going to tell us how much they're going to try, because they're going to have cap space. Depending on what they do with the cap space is going to be interesting. I fully expect a new general manager. I fully expect a new head coach. And this is the fresh, clean slate that we so desperately need. And we're also hoping that this is the batter of radio, or the pot of radioactive batter, if you will. Like, that's what we're hoping, that we just fall in there. And this is the actual change that you were talking about. So the hope is that we just fall into that. And maybe Plotkin and Schnall, they can figure this thing out while building around Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball, and then whoever else. Like, those are the two guys that matter. Like, the Mark Williams stuff is always wishy-washy. The guys that matter right now are LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller, and we'll see what can happen from there.
Yeah, look, they're obviously willing to invest in the stadium, in the arena, and they've hinted that they are going to invest heavily into a new practice facility. And those things matter. The arena matters to fans because they are experiencing the ones that actually attend these games, the season ticket holders. You know, that's the lifeblood of these organizations. You know, that it matters to them. And the practice facility actually does matter in terms of attracting talent. You want those amenities for players. You want them to know, hey, we're investing in those things that are going to make your life more comfortable if you play here, whether you like it or not. Mm-hmm. Those things matter, but are they willing to invest in getting – because it's one thing to fire your coach. It's one thing to fire your GM, but are they willing to invest in a world-class coach? Are they willing to invest in and give into some of the demands that a world-class coach would have? Are they willing to invest in a world-class front office? That to me is the delineation between franchises that have – losing as part of their culture and franchises that don't. They're willing to invest in things that actually result in winning basketball, including players, including cutting checks for players in free agency or trading for players that have major contracts and then dealing with those contracts as you move forward. Risk. It's all about risk. This team, this front office, this ownership group was not willing to risk. They wanted to magically win something and then they would invest in this team. If only this team would win, then it was a chicken and the egg kind of thing. Magic thinking has permeated through the Michael Jordan era of the Charlotte Hornets. And now Michael Jordan is still a part owner of a minority owner of this franchise. And Rick Schnall and Gabe Plotkin both have connections, deep connections with Michael Jordan. And so the question is Michael Jordan and the not doing what it takes investment-wise to make this organization world-class, is that part of the DNA? Is that going to continue to be part of the DNA? Because if it does, then maybe Terry was right.
And the world-class coach you talk about, it doesn't have to be Mike D'Antoni, right? It doesn't have to be.
He's a world-class coach, 50 wins, you know?
He is. That's right. I said that to the wrong person. I forgot.
Yeah, why would you say that to me? That was a direct shot.
No, Wes and Walker... Lockdown Hornets, it's very different. No, I would love Mike D'Antoni, just to be clear. My point is, it doesn't have to be the big name. Like this is why I liked what the Panthers did so much. I've got Panthers on the brain because it's all Panthers news coming in. But they just did the normal thing, and they just went after a hot assistant coach. Depending, hot could mean a couple things there, but hot assistant coach that did a great job the previous season, and it's time to promote that guy that did such a great job at multiple stops. The Hornets could do the same thing. Instead of doing the retread, they did it with James Borrego. Like, at the time that they hired Borrego, I was totally cool with it. Like, that was it was one of those, hey, who knows? Like, the ceiling we don't know what the ceiling is. But that was a smart move at the time, and then they decided to move on, and that's been polarizing, but whatever, they did it. And then you go after Steve Clifford, and that was an issue right from the get-go, even if it's not necessarily all his fault as to why they're so underperforming right now. But you could just do the right things that winning organizations do, or that organizations that make that jump do. Hey, let's go after the assistant coach that did a great job with a winning franchise and see if it's his time. And then we can apply it with a bunch of new players. We have 2 young core guys already on the roster that we would like to build with. Now it's up to us to put that talent next to the new head coach, next to the 2 guys that we want to move forward with. And if we can't do it, then we'll fail again. But those decisions are the ones that are going to lead this team out of the mud that they've been stuck in since 2004.
And by the way, no more trading players to Eastern Conference title contenders, okay? That's out. Kelly and Terry, they ruined it for everybody. If I'm the front office, I'm marching into the locker room and being like, listen, if we trade any of you bums, you're going to, I don't know, you're going to Toronto. You're going to, we'll ship you to Chicago. But no more of this sending them to Miami or Philadelphia or anything like that. Sorry, Terry and Kelly ruined it, kids.
It is happening like that, which is very weird, right? Perhaps it's because they don't cost as much money in the other cases outside of Terry, because Malik wasn't traded, but Malik eventually goes to the Lakers, and that's when they're competing. And then Kelly goes to Philadelphia. Now Terry is going to Miami. As this Mason goes to the Clippers.
Yeah, sorry.
You're right. Everybody.
Sorry, Nick. I hope you like museums because you're heading to D.C., buddy.
Jalen McDaniels goes to Philly. They all go somewhere. It is actually amazing. That's a great point.
Quit it.
It's a great point. It's not an Eastern Conference title contender, but they're all they're all title contenders. Yeah, it's nuts. All right, we're doing fruit here. Let's move on. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
Hope Miles likes Motown. That's all I'm saying. Detroit, baby.
We got to get to Brandon Miller, who is not on the trade block. No, you title contenders cannot have Brandon Miller. No, Detroit, Motown, bad teams. You can also not have Brandon Miller. He is a rising star, quite literally, and we'll discuss that on the other side. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. At the start of the new year, every small business owner is asking themselves the same question. What's the move? What's the one move I can make that'll take my business to the next level in 2024? LinkedIn Jobs knows that your success all depends on the team that you surround yourself with. That's why LinkedIn Jobs has created the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number 1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn also knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. More Locked On Hornets coming up. Doug, it's about time we get to Brandon Miller, who received good news. It's been the loudest, the noisiest, shiniest bright spot with the Charlotte Hornets this year. It's that Brandon Miller at number 2 turned out to be a pretty damn good pick. We'll see how it goes going forward, but that guy has been very good. Shot making at an elite level. Doug, I have now crossed over in my feelings with Brandon going to the mid-range, and I just expect it to go in, right? Like now I feel so comfortable when he gets to his spot and he shoots it within 15 feet. Now, it's a great shot. I'm cool with that. The shot making has been ridiculous from the perimeter. And let's just go over the last month or so, and really even just like the last quarter, or maybe the last half of this month, right? So it all started when he went for 24 points in the victory over San Antonio. So he had 1 point on the road against San Antonio, gets hurt, out for a couple of games, comes back the next week, the next Friday, scores 24 in the win against San Antonio. 23 against Philly, 27 in that win against Minnesota, 23 in the loss, but 23 against Detroit, 5-12, and then 29 against New York. So a little blip, as you declared yesterday, not a dip, but just a little blip on the radar. And then he bounced back strong with New York. Brandon Miller has been fun, and I think what most people are more appreciative of. Yeah, you got to be good at basketball. That's okay. Check, right? Boxes checked there. But the attitude, this guy so clearly caring as much as anyone. It's not just with him having the towel on his head. It's not, we don't have to deduce it just to that, right? We can go back at the beginning of the season when Brandon Miller was showing quality and characteristic after characteristic of, I care about winning basketball. Even in the summer league, making the right play, you could argue, was him caring about trying to win those basketball games, even in summer league. And he continues to do it. The Knicks performance, Doug, being the latest example of that.
Yeah, for sure. And let's focus on the news for a second. So he's going to All-Star Weekend. He's not an All-Star yet, but he is going to All-Star Weekend. And that's important. And it wasn't a given. You know, number 2 overall selection, you're thinking most likely heading to Rising Stars, but he could have gotten injured early in the season. He could have just come out of the gates terrible and not really recovered, or possibly fallen out of a healthier rotation. There were a lot of different things that could have happened that would have resulted in him not necessarily getting this bid to the Rising Stars, but none of that happened. Instead, the exact opposite happened. He's performed on an elite level, and he would be in the conversation for Rookie of the Year in literally any other year, I think, that didn't involve 2 aliens at their position and Shed and Wemby, right? And so he's everything that you could have asked for at that 2nd overall pick. And now he's going to All-Star Weekend, and I think it's going to be important for him to be around all of that winning. It's going to be important for all this entire team to get a break, to just like get a breather right now, because especially Brandon, who looks just gassed. I don't know if maybe
he's so tired. He's so tired, Doug.
He is, and I don't know, maybe we misinterpreted the towel over the head of being entirely about losing. Maybe part of it was just like, I am exhausted. I'm not upset. I'm not frustrated. I'm just tired, because he has put the team on his back, and that's a lot to ask.
When he talked about this last week, it was when he said he didn't hit the rookie wall. I was like, nope, I'm not hitting the rookie wall. I don't believe in it, which is a great mentality to have. And there were 2 games that weren't great of him, but then he goes out and he scores 29. The thing is, maybe we should clarify, the rookie wall might not be that you just aren't producing. The rookie wall is that you are damn tired. You ain't used to this volume of basketball. And at halftime of that Knicks game, I thought he was going to pass out. He could not answer the questions from Ashley. Ashley asked him 2. It was, we just have to come out, and we had a good focus, and we competed on the defensive end. And then he answered one more question, and then Ashley said, go catch your breath. Because we all knew, like, that you're going to need him in the second half. And it didn't matter, but it wasn't because of Brandon Miller.
Well, because he's getting up and down the floor, he's making shots, he's setting screens. He is. There were a few games there where he wasn't involved on the boards, but mostly in this little good stretch that he's had good rebounding numbers. Defensively, you know, it's been difficult for him to stay with some of these quicker matchups, but he is giving effort, and he's trying to talk, which is the most important thing, like communication. Like, look, he can't keep anyone in front of him right now, but in terms of just the team defense, when they go to zone and stuff, like, he's one of the few guys on this team that will consistently communicate with the other guys that he's around in order to keep this defense organized. So all of that is important, and I love Brandon's attitude. I just don't believe in the rookie wall. I wish that not believing in something made it not true, made it not so you didn't hit the rookie wall. Because if that were the case, then I wouldn't believe in hitting, 190 pounds. I just wouldn't believe it. I don't believe it. I could eat whatever I want. I don't believe in gaining weight, so I won't gain it. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. I think he is getting tired, and he needs this all-star break, but he needs to be around the winning. He needs to be, like, I think it benefited LaMelo when he went to All-Star Weekend to just see what that elite company was like. And so, I think it will be good for him to be a part of that and vault him into the success to come.
I also believe that pints of Ben & Jerry's doesn't have 1,300 calories in every single pint. So what is this? What are these calories you speak of? Yeah, Doug, I made this point last week when I went solo, and it was about LaMelo. So it was when the all-star starters were introduced, and we found out who was going to be the starting backcourt for the Eastern Conference. And, LaMelo isn't going to make it because he hasn't played as many games. You see the voting. LaMelo, I think, when we were seeing the voting results, he was like 8th at the highest in the backcourt of the Eastern Conference. And so, there were a couple shots for him to make it, but he's not going to. He hadn't played enough games. And that's what I talked about, was just missing out on some of those things now. where he didn't when he goes to the Rising Stars. He wins Rookie of the Year. He goes to the All-Star game the second season, but the injuries have taken away all of the accolades and all of the things that you could do. And I brought this in when he wasn't one of the 40 U.S. participants. He wasn't one of the 40 guys that could possibly compete with Team USA. Mm-hmm. That one hurts, I think, too. That one sucks, because talking about being about winning and just an uber competitive culture. To make Team USA, it's a lot of ballers out there trying to make that team. And so now, because of injuries, because I have to imagine, right, if LaMelo is fully healthy, then LaMelo would be a top 40 player to go see if he can compete for Team USA. I would think that. I would certainly hope that. But because he's injured, he's just not getting this opportunity now. He didn't make All-Star this year. He didn't make All-Star last year. So there's no reason for him to go to those breaks. And I do think that matters, just having the experience. Or if you don't think missing one matters, then I think missing all of them, it starts to build up as these things continue. So you're right. I think it's a good point by you to emphasize the Rising Stars Challenge, because you're right. The experience does matter. The fact that you're still young, good, foundation piece, your whole future is ahead of you. Everybody's excited about it. Now you get to go compete with all of the other guys that are somewhere in your neighborhood. They're not having as good of a rookie year as you in most cases, but they're in your neighborhood. They want what you have right now and beyond. And that's why I totally agree with you. It sucks that LaMelo's missing out on this stuff because of injury, and it's great that Brandon is going there because he's so good.
But also, don't compete too hard. Just take it. I want the All-Star game to be competitive. This Rising Stars Challenge, I'm okay with them just hooping it up a little bit and having some fun. What's interesting about this too is that they are now including some of these G League Ignite players into the player pool. So Brandon Miller might get some minutes with a few names that are showing up on some mock drafts that are already out. Wasserman, Bleacher Report, has Ron Holland going to the Charlotte Hornets at number 4 going on. Buzelis also in this mock draft up top. He's going 7 to the Grizzlies. Buzelis will be part of this player pool as well. So Brandon could be little early minutes with a future teammates.
You just hit me with the mock draft melee, and it's January.
January.
It's January 31st. You meleeed
fruit salad,
me.
yummy.
We got to hit the last bullet point here. It's not going to be long for me. I can tell you that right now. The LaMelo laugh gaff. Doug, can you summarize what your take was, having talked about this yesterday? Hit the clip. I don't know about, at least Hornets community viral of LaMelo during a loss that had turned into borderline blowout, maybe just even outright blowout against the Knicks. It's he, James Bouknight, Bryce McGowens, they're all laughing. It's after Steve Clifford gets ejected for wanting a foul call on Brandon Miller. People thought it was an awful look that LaMelo, Bouknight, and Bryce McGowens were all laughing. What was your summarized take?
Was basically this whole conversation is silly, that I don't think that one game laughing on the sideline is like indicative of an entire attitude of an 82-game season. I'm basically where Steve Clifford is on it. They asked Clifford in a media availability yesterday about it, and he was basically like, look, I'm in there with the guys. They all want to compete. This season has been cursed. He didn't say this, but I will put some words in his mouth. The season's cursed. He bought a haunted house. Like, there are ghosts everywhere. Guys are getting injured. There's not enough talent. And so, like, there are reasons why this team isn't winning. Now, if this team were fully healthy and everything was going their way in that respect, and they were still losing, and there was some of that stuff going on the bench, well, then I might, give some credence to this. But I think that it's a little bit of a silly conversation, honestly.
I do too. I hate these conversations because, one, it's like one moment and we want to make this sweeping statement about their general attitude towards losing in a clip of watching your coach get ejected, which doesn't happen. We laugh at Steve Clifford getting so mad. I think everybody has a story. If anybody played sports, you have a story about how funny it was when your coach was seething at whatever it was you were putting out there on the court. I have my stories about my high school basketball coach getting so angry, and they're hilarious to think about on this day. And the team was trying to hold in laughter during one of his tirades in the locker room. The thing is, the intended purpose, I think, or what the intention is from Steve Clifford is to get his team focused and rallying the troops. I do think there is part of that, right? Like that's part of what you do when you get ejected is to rally the troops. And then you look over on the bench and then you see them laughing. It's like, oh, okay, well, maybe it didn't work. LaMelo's not playing. Bryce and James Bouknight aren't playing for different reasons. But all right, maybe it didn't work. Maybe it did work for the guys it was supposed to work for. I don't know. But that's why I hate all of it, because I have near enough evidence for my liking to say, okay, now we know those guys don't care at all about winning. I don't have that.
Frowning is not going to magically make this team better. Okay? Keeping a sour face on the bench is not going to make this team. If you take anything away from this episode, it's that the issues that this franchise have run way deeper than a couple of guys yucking it up on the sideline. Like, that is not going to magically fix that. And if you focus on that, if you critique that, and you're not critiquing everything else that's going on within this organization, then you're the problem, not those guys. Although James Bouknight, you know what? Maybe that's like the one guy that I'm like, you know what? Maybe you actually should take it a little bit more seriously.
All right, let's end on that one. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your
I'm
first
conflicted.
listen.
I have multitudes.
Yeah, I know. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. Go read more of Doug's thoughts on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. You can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. I'm sure we'll play this Terry Rozier sound again. I'm sure 15 seconds of radio will be me doing this. La, 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 I can't hear. So make sure you tune in and hear that on 92.7 FM. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.
I'll just say this, Bouknight, I hope you like the Alamo because you're heading to San Antonio, buddy.